I really appreciate you joining us today. I'll be speaking today about data sovereignty and XQ's exciting partnership with AWS that's enabling a lot of business outcomes as a result. Before jumping into the presentation, I've been having a lot of conversations this week regarding the difference between data sovereignty and digital sovereignty. Wanted to outline how we approach data sovereignty. True data sovereignty is the ability to enable full control over your data wherever the data goes, from the edge, in the cloud, whether you're sharing data with partners, whether that data is in a SaaS solution. True data sovereignty is the organization having full control and visibility over that data wherever it goes. There are a number of different challenges that healthcare organizations are facing today when moving data to the cloud and storing data within different environments. Of course, one of the common themes is security concerns. These are very sensitive data sets, and you're often concerned with respect to is my data going to be accessed by third parties? Will my data be breached if I'm storing it in a cloud environment or a SaaS environment? Additionally, it's very challenging to meet multiple different compliance and regulatory laws in one cloud environment, as each jurisdiction often has specific laws. How do you ensure in a cloud environment that you're meeting these compliance laws holistically? Additionally, of course, the topic of today's conversation, data sovereignty. How do you have full control over your data wherever that data goes and in the cloud? This is a big challenge that organizations are facing today, and a challenge that's restricting a lot of organizations to move full workloads to the cloud. Donnie, do you have any additional context that you could provide from an AWS perspective working with healthcare organizations?
Absolutely. A lot of our customers are always concerned about the sensitive nature of the data, the healthcare data, and even their own individual, sensitive data that they keep for their corporation. One of those topics typically comes up to allow us to protect their data with the controls that we have built in AWS. But at the same time, they're still a little bit worried, even though we have really great documentation, we have certifications about the direct access of their data from the hyperscaler itself. So basically, is AWS going to use my data? What I love about XQ and what we're going to talk about today is how they uniquely solve that challenge.
Thank you so much, Donnie.
Yep.
It's a really good point that you bring up. Oftentimes, organizations, when they are storing data in the hyperscaler environment, they believe that once that data is in that environment, it is secure. The truth of the matter is that as an organization, as a healthcare organization, you need to ensure that your data is secure from the edge to the cloud in multi and hybrid cloud environments as that data moves from environment to environment, and also protect data from any third-party access, including hyperscaler and internet service providers. So how are we approaching this here at XQ? We've invented something called zero trust data. What this does is at the edge, we protect each packet of data that is microsegmented with a unique encryption key that's actually generated at the edge. We then attach unique policies to that data that state who can read the data, when the data can be read, and specifically for data sovereignty, what's very important is where that data can be read. We then let data flow as it typically would, whether it's stored in AWS S3, a SaaS solution, whether you're sharing data via email with a partner or you have joint venture databases, for example, that data is allowed to flow as it typically would. But on the other end, once that data is accessed, it is required to meet all of the policies that the organization sets out to be able to access that data. This policy library is completely dynamic. So at any point in time, organizations are able to change who has access to record level data. This enables organizations to meet various compliance and regulatory laws and requirements that they have to meet within the jurisdictions that they're working in while being in a holistic cloud environment or in a different SaaS provider. Donnie, anything that you would add as you've seen the benefits from XQ working with healthcare organizations?
Yeah, I think we've heard a lot, even in previous sessions, about how the data itself, once it leaves AWS and those controls, whether it's at the end user device, for example, the data is kind of out of our purview. So what I love about XQ and sort of the message that we're trying to deliver here is that it gives you an additional layer of protection at that data layer. And so it follows the data where our technology kind of makes sure it's secure inside of AWS. So the combination of the two are really needed because that control really hasn't been solved yet.
It's a really good point you bring up. We all know about the shared responsibility model. So within the AWS environment, understanding that AWS does a fantastic job at protecting infrastructure. However, the data holder, that organization that's putting data in the cloud, they are responsible for the security of that data. It's this incredible better together story. In addition, as data moves beyond the AWS infrastructure, how are you ensuring that you're applying security and compliance requirements to that record and every record? You do that with a technology like XQ. Beyond healthcare, XQ is the only patented and commercially available solution that actually meets the DoD and NSA's requirements for zero trust data. This is defined in the zero trust framework for the DoD and NSA. And what's so exciting is that all federal agencies and DoD organizations must meet this by the end of next year in order to continue consuming any cloud in terms of hyperscalers as well as SaaS solutions. XQ is integrated into this white labeled product in addition to Zscaler, CrowdStrike, Okta, and Splunk. We're a lot smaller than the other 4 organizations I mentioned. And the reason that we're included is because we're the only one that can apply these zero trust tenets to the data itself and wherever that data goes. So we're here today to talk about sovereignty. Oftentimes, a lot of my multinational organizations that we work with, they have additional concerns with respect to sovereignty as they have multiple requirements globally that they have to face. And oftentimes regulators, especially we're seeing regulators within the Middle East as well as Europe, they're concerned about the US Cloud and Patriot Act. This states that the US government can subpoena for access to EU entity data, and AWS or any of the hyperscalers would have to provide that data to the US government. This is a big concern of European entities because that would be a GDPR infraction, of course, as data is exfiltrated outside of an EU country. So what's XQ doing to solve this? What we do is our entire backend is stored in nodes and can be completely deployed in a containerized fashion. And so what we do within Europe and the Middle East and some other countries where this is a massive concern is we're actually able to store the encryption keys, the millions to billions of keys that we generate on a daily basis for every individual record on EU entity infrastructure so that all of the data that's stored in the cloud, well, that data is not accessible. In addition, with XQ technology, we generate a forensic level log of every time someone accesses your data, who's accessing, where it's being accessed from. But also, even if there's an attempt of accessing that data, we generate a log and we're able to flag anomalies. This is really important because if data is attempted to be accessed, it can define that maybe a bad actor has gotten into one of your cloud environments and has exfiltrated that data and made a copy of it. Well, with XQ, you have the ability to remotely kill that data, turn that data into digital dust. This eliminates the risk of continuous extortion that a lot of organizations are concerned about today. So that is all good and well, but ultimately, how does this look in a real world example? So XQ has a number of turnkey integrations integrated with AWS to store all unstructured and structured data using this zero trust data approach. And so one of the applications of this is our Vault solution. This enables organizations from the edge, from the endpoint, to secure all files that they have within that organization, back that up into the cloud, and ensure that each record is meeting specific mandates that can be defined by that organization. So all of their files can be stored in one S3 environment, for example, but every file can have specific requirements. Maybe one file is only accessible within Alabama. The other file may only be accessible within Toronto. With XQ and our integration with AWS, you can ensure that you can back up your entire organization and meet these jurisdiction-specific requirements while protecting your data throughout the lifecycle of your data. Because from the edge to the cloud and beyond, your data is continuously protected. Donnie, anything that you'd add here?
Sure. Like like Kelly said, the full chain of custody of data is a unique challenge that we often try to help customers with. The right to be forgotten is a very challenging situation as well. And with these capabilities, the nodes being able to be installed in local areas, it gives you the ability to solve that challenge. And it's pretty unique because the combination of the two is great because you can trust that we have our abilities to protect your data. We don't often turn it over, but whenever the push kind of comes, we have to abide by the laws. Now you have the reassurance that you can actually protect your assets and still provide full chain of custody with confidence that that information has or hasn't been accessed by, specific individuals.
It's a really good point that you bring up, Donnie. With XQ, this whole idea here is that network access or application access does not equal data access. So this is just one integration of how we achieve that. We also enable, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to remove the continuous extortion threat off the table for organizations. This is a threat that continues to impact healthcare as different organizations storing data within cloud or on-prem environments are breached. Bad actors are aware that no longer is just encrypting that data enough. They're making a copy of that data and extorting third organizations by saying, if you do not give us $1 million for the decryption keys, we will publish your data on the dark web or we'll send your data to the Wall Street Journal. Last year, there was a large Las Vegas hotel that was breached. And what happened there is the bad actors approached the hotel and said, pay us $80 million for your data. The hotel had backups in place, and so they were not going to pay that ransomware. The bad actor had the foresight to actually make a copy of the data before they encrypted that data. And in that case, they actually identified some not so legal processes that this Las Vegas hotel had deployed, and they were able to extort up to $80 million for being able to remove that risk off the table for the Las Vegas hotel organization. So with XQ, as I said, you have the full control of your data wherever the data goes. And if your data is stolen, you have the ability to remotely revoke access to that data. You kill that data, turn that data into digital dust. Imagine if your cloud environment was hacked today and you could provide the peace of mind to your customers that not only your data wasn't accessed in that environment because you have granular level logs of everything that's happening to every individual record, but you also turn that data that may have been stolen into digital dust. We also have integrations into structured data. So the same idea as unstructured data, Vault, and some of the other integrations that we've mentioned, but this is an integration into databases. With XQ, not only can you secure the database environment, with XQ, you can actually secure every individual entry within database with unique security and apply unique policies. This is really important within healthcare because oftentimes it's very challenging to get data sets from multiple different contributors because they're concerned about their data use and the data security of those of the data that they're contributing. With XQ, you can have an entire database be restricted. So no one has access or visibility into any of the PHI or PII, but organizations and partners can still query that data. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with the breach that happened a couple of months ago with Snowflake and a number of other 400 organizations. What happened in that circumstance was bad actors were able to access an application, in this case, Snowflake. Typically, application access equals data access. We have an integration with Snowflake, for example, that would have prevented that from happening because every individual piece of data within that database, every cell, has unique security and compliance policies applied to it. Just going to pass by a couple of these just due to time here, but I really wanted to underscore some of the challenges that XQ is really helping to solve with this partnership with AWS. So some of the challenges that organizations, specifically within healthcare, come to us to solve is how do they ensure the security of IoT sensor data as it moves from the edge to the cloud? If they have a multi or hybrid environment, how are they ensuring that that data moving between all of these environments are secure? Restricting third-party data access. We know that there's millions and billions of pieces of data that are generated every minute, but oftentimes the breaches that are happening because we're trusting third parties with our data. A thesis that we have here at XQ is you shouldn't be trusting anyone with your data. With our technology, XQ actually has no access to your data. We enable the ability for organizations to secure every individual record down to the database entry, but we ourselves have no ability to access that data. And our core thesis is that the organization themselves are the only ones that should have access to that data. Anything that you would add, Donnie, in terms of working with XQ at AWS and the benefits that you're seeing on the customer end?
Yeah, from a reputational perspective, the extortion's kind of gotten a little bit out of hand. So besides going after the organizations themselves, they're actually going after the individual patients. So even if you have the ability to restore your data, think about the healthcare organization being able to make the claim that we can protect your data, and that if that happens, they can actually protect the individual patients at a new level. So the extortions have gotten, like I said, I think they're quadruple extortion. There's all these different tactics where they're trying to maximize the actual incident itself. XQ solves that by basically keeping the encryption at the data packet itself, and the ability to delete that and turn it into digital dust is uniquely. I haven't seen anybody else do it before. So it's pretty incredible. It's great for patients. It's great for healthcare systems. And like I said, it makes running solutions on AWS even more secure.
That's a great final point. Donnie, I would mention one last example here of how XQ and AWS are helping impact business outcomes. So this whole idea about controlling data wherever it goes and having full visibility of that data wherever it goes extends to the customer or the patient itself. When patients share data with an organization, we have integrations that enable the patient themselves to see when their data was accessed, who accessed their data, and also revoke access to their data. Imagine how much information you're providing life insurance companies when you're applying for life insurance. I feign to think about how much information is currently in a unsecure email server right now of the independent broker that I applied for life insurance with. However, with the XQ integration, you're extending trust to the customer and to the patient by enabling them the ability to revoke access to any information that they shared once the business process is done. So not only does this impact the ability from a compliance and security perspective, but what XQ and our partnership with AWS is also helping to achieve is how do you give more trust back to the patient and the customer? Give them visibility into, has their MRI been reviewed by the radiologist? Has different doctors looked at their files, etc. It's just really improving the entire life cycle of data and ensuring security to prevent additional breaches. So that is the end of our presentation today. If you are interested in how XQ and our partnership with AWS can help your organization, I'd love to talk to you today. You can also reach out to XQ or AWS. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.